Before I get started, I want to just mention that I'm going to be doing monthly online group sessions or Satsangs. I'll put a link in the description on how to find out information, sign up, add it to your calendar. They're via Zoom, so check it out if you want. Today I want to talk about fixing the world. We're going to go over the steps. If you've heard any of these talks, you might know where this is going. But there's basically one way to fix the world. One step that needs to be taken. One action completed. And that is to realize that the world doesn't need fixing at all. Now, some may hear that in the minds like, but, and that's natural. But to that, I would say there is a step prior to fixing the world, and that is to search and discover your true nature, who and what you truly are. And then there's two parts of that. One is that upon discovery of your true nature, of who and what you truly are, you may realize that the world doesn't need fixing at all. And the other thing is, if that still is not the case, or if that's not a believable end result, I guess, then finding who and what you truly are, finding your true nature, which is consciousness, it is the infinite. You, maybe still this belief system in the separate you, are better equipped to assist the world. So it's like on airplanes they tell you, put the mask on you first before you help your children. You need to help yourself first, find out your true nature. In that discovery, and by the way, the world doesn't need fixing. And in that discovery of looking at your true nature, you'll find that you don't need fixing. There's nothing that isn't already perfect, that isn't already whole and complete, except for thoughts arising, claiming otherwise. There's lots of speakers and authors that have mentioned this. How can you sit here and say this when there's all this suffering in the world? And depending on who it was that said it, there was some version of, well, why don't you leave that up to the Creator? Why don't you have the audacity to think that you, in the belief system of the separate person, can and should be doing something about this? Leave it up, in Christianity sometimes they'll say, give it up to God. Leave it up to the Creator that made all of this. It's a nice and decent pointer. It still has that duality aspect to it, as does all language. The world doesn't need fixing. And in current times, it may seem as though it's completely broken, that now more than ever, there are problems that need to be solved. But this good and bad approach, things that are good and things that are bad, they're perfectly balanced in consciousness. And I don't mean tit for tat. I don't mean for every good thing there's a bad thing necessarily in that context. It's just that there is no good or bad. It's all just a big happening. It's all just this happening. And good and bad are labels that the mind comes up with, the ego, whatever you want to say, to try to impose things that need to be solved, things that need to be categorized, labeled, put in this bucket and not in that one. And all it does is just prop up this feeling of separateness when those labels, when those thoughts are believed and followed. The world doesn't need to be fixed, and neither do you. There's nothing wrong with anything that's happening except as part of this illusion, a part of the dream. And they're all of the problems, all of the proposed solutions, they are all started with the base point of separateness, of separate from everything. I'm a person in the world that life is happening to. And when I say that you don't need fixing, that also means that if there is seeking energy, that you don't need to make this move from seeker to awakened person. Now that always gets, responses. Well, easy for you to say. No, it's not easy for me to say. It's just being said. It's just being said. It may feel as though there's a lot of bad happening in the world. And if one wanted to get into a philosophical debate where one person took a negative standpoint and the other one took a positive, they could go tit for tat, and neither would leave from that conversation or that debate fulfilled. Not for very long. I assume the negative person especially, but so it's not about good versus bad. It's not about, well, yeah, there's all these there's these things that are happening, and they are people are getting sick and they're dying and they're losing their jobs, et cetera, and then someone says, well, yeah, but there's more creativity and people are realizing what's important. Like, you can go back and forth, but that's all just mind food. It's all just chatter in the head, and there is no bigger well of blah 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 chatter than on social media. And that's okay. This isn't judgment about social media. It just is blaringly obvious. It's funny, in fact, to watch consciousness just make so much noise, apparently directed at this other thing. Consciousness making noise at itself. And it can get pretty intense. You're wrong, I'm right. It's just consciousness having an argument with itself. If there's a calling to assist, if there's a calling to help, do that. Proceed. Take that action. Do it without, if possible, do it without the mindset of, I have something that this person does not, and therefore I am helping them. That just props up this element of hierarchy or other. Feel the call to assist. Feel the call to help. And approach it in the most authentic and pure way possible. And if that can be done without the judgment of, this is a problem that needs fixing, and it's done more as a movement, as karma, in an act of unconditional love, there seems to be a natural want to go to well, that's great, that's a good thing, and the other way is bad, and the other way is not necessarily bad, but it's a call to take that approach when it comes to assistance and helping. Humanity and this play of life is showing up in really wonderful ways. It's beautiful, actually, but it's just the infinite doing what it does as itself for itself. It's not creating problems that it's then fixing. Those problems are not real in terms of the infinite, in terms of awareness, the absolute. Everything is perfect as it is. Everything, all of it, because it's just this happening, this infinite, amazing, beautiful miracle is perfect as it is. It doesn't, there's no change that needs to be made to it. There's no cleaning up or fixing or correction required. It just is.